Hello, and welcome to Hope for Felons podcast, where we discuss felons and everything in between. Your host for this show is Douglas Van Vliet. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to Hope for Felons podcast. We are good and glad that you have decided to join us today. As you can see, we are just doing a voice only today since this is the 31st of March, the last day of March. So we are just doing a quick overview of what we talked about this month. We also will be going more into depth today about how the halfway house works. How the halfway house and the BOP and probation intertwines together. And I think it's a need that people understand this, because sometimes they do not understand how, when you go to a halfway house, how it actually works, because you're not technically on probation at that time. So let's go into it. Okay, a person is released from prison and they go to the halfway house. Well, at that time, they're still in the custody of the BOP, because the BOP is the ones that have contracts with these halfway houses and that allow you to go there for the remaining of your incarceration time. So, say that you get to the halfway house and you say, well, I want to go to home confinement. Well, there's a few things that happen at that time. When you give the release address, then what the halfway house does, the halfway house sends it to the Bureau of Prisons, and they send a form to the probation officer that will be supervising you during your time of supervision. And the probation officer will contact and go to that residence that you put down that you want to go to on home confinement, and they either approve it or disapprove. So if the probation officer approves it, then 9 times out of 10, they will actually approve it as well. But one of the stipulations, and I think I've actually covered it this month already, is the number one key to going on home confinement is you have to have transportation. It don't mean that you have to have a driver's license, but you have to have a family member that will take you to report in to the halfway house when they request you to come. Normally, they try to set it up like if you're far away. See, residents that's actually far away, if you decide to take home confinement when you get to the halfway house and you live 3 hours away, then they may have special rules and regulations for a person that lives far away, and might allow you to report in, instead of every week, to report in every 2 weeks, because the individual will have to have an ankle monitor on. So that's usually not a problem, but transportation is a must, because if they call you and say to come and report in, then you have to be able to have a way to get there. I know some months back they used to allow halfway houses. Some of them was allowing people that go to home confinement that didn't have transportation to report in via Zoom, But the BOP has recently stopped that and said, no, you can no longer do that. They have to have transportation. So that has put a dilemma on some of these people that's wanting to go to home confinement, and they have to tell them, no, if you don't have transportation, then you can't go on to home confinement. Some people feel that the probation officer still is a component of the halfway house, which that's not so. The only thing that a probation officer does is go out to the residents and approve or disapprove if you go onto home confinement, because they want to make sure that the living conditions and the person that you are going to agrees with you staying there. That's the only thing they do. And they do come to see the individuals at the halfway house to basically get more of an understanding of their release plan when they do go to their release facility. I'm sorry, their house that they will be released to, and to make sure that, you know, everything is right. Normally, the probation officer goes out before they're released and make sure that everything is up to par before they're actually released from the prison to the halfway house. But that is one of the things. But I wanted to explain to you a little bit about how the halfway house works as in terms of housing, and um, how that and the home confinement play a big part. Now, a lot of halfway houses is getting upset because they can no longer let a person go to home confinement if they don't have transportation. And here's why. When a person goes to the halfway house and they actually are assigned to a bed and have been there for a period of time, and then say, for instance, they go to home confinement, well, another person that's released from the prison to the halfway house go into that same bed. So there could be 4 or 5 people that's paying for that same bed. So you can see why that some of the halfway houses have gotten upset, because they can no longer do that if that person does not have transportation. So they are stuck with them a lot of times for the remaining um, of their sentence until their incarceration time is up. And then, of course, when that is up, then that's when they are property of supervised release. The probation officer has to deal with them at that point. I hope this has helped explain a little bit more in depth on how it works, but it's really tough. It really is. But of course, once you are done with your halfway house time and home confinement time, then of course the probation officer, you report into them within so long, and then you will deal with them until you're officially off of supervised release. So it is a big process that you have to go through, and a lot of people don't know and understand how that it works. But what I would suggest is, if you have a family member that is, getting ready to go to the halfway house, is find out what halfway house they will be going to and see how far that you actually live from the halfway house, if that's where they will be staying, and see if home confinement would be a good option for your situation. Because if you live far away, maybe you can find another family member that lives closer to that facility where they could stay until, the incarceration time has ended. this is usually a very good idea to do, especially if you live 2 or 3 hours away and you may not feel like you will be able to take them, especially now that gas prices is very expensive. It might be tough for them to report in all the time. In some cases, I have seen where individual will take the bus to go, and report in and take the bus back. As long as you have transportation, then it's normally not a problem. But that's something, of course, you have to talk with the halfway house about, and also to get further information on how their system works. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, how does a person that goes to the halfway house, how do they find a job? Well, this is how it works. Normally, they have people that work there, employment specialists, that actually help you find a job. And if you want to go looking for a job, then you have to submit a request to the employment specialist to get a pass to go to these places to fill out applications or whatever you want to do. But they do have times where they have jobs available and they will ask if you want to go to them. And some of these jobs is okay and some of them are not so good, but at least it gets your foot in the door and you can make a little bit of money to be able to pay your way. And one of the things I want to say is, after you get a job, the first thing they want you to do is establish a bank account. Now, this has been one of the things that they have pushed for years, and that is to be able to have your own banking account, so that way you can keep track of your money. So when you do go and release from the custody of the BOP into the probation officer, that you will know and understand how to save your money and how to manage your money. I believe this is a big thing, especially when it comes to somebody that's coming out of prison, that's been in prison for many years, and now they have to adjust, you know, now they have to take matters into their own hands and make sure that every issue is met, that they get everything under control as far as their money, and, understanding how to save money. That's a big thing, because in prison, most of the time, they don't make much money, and usually it takes all the money that they make for phone calls and everything to their loved ones. So, they really are not able to save much. But so that's why having a bank account actually really helps the offender when it comes to, uh, you know, paying bills and, managing their money. And, but getting a job sometimes can be crucial. I'm not going to say it's easy for a offender to go out and get a job, because it is hard. And now that the pandemic is going on, they are hiring everywhere, but it's still to the point where some offenders still have issues getting a job when they are released. I do know one offender in general that will be released here in like 13, 14 days, and he actually got a job before being released from prison, and which I think is great. This is something that's absolutely great. So they will actually, this person that hired him will actually pick him up at the bus station and take him to the halfway house. And then, of course, he will be working uh, for this individual, which is great. It's just amazing. But not everybody has that situation. But I encourage everybody that goes to the halfway house is to try to do their best. And I know that some of the rules is a lot like prison, but you have to deal with it and you have to be understanding. If you're not, then 9 times out of 10 you may not make it. They do shakedowns, they do everything just like they do in prison to make sure that you don't have nothing that you're not supposed to have. So think of a halfway house as being a prison, but you can still go out and do things. You can get a pass to go to the store to get hygiene. You can get passes to go to the store to get different things that you need. That's usually not a problem. You can get, after you start work, you can actually get a pass to go out and eat, which I think that's cool. So you can get different passes, and of course, most of the halfway houses are on a bus line. So you can actually take the bus or walk to most of the places that you need to go to. And the halfway house will give bus passes if you need a bus pass to go back and forth to work until you get that first check. After you get that first check, then you're pretty much on your own. But I think that everybody would agree that after you get your first check, then you're pretty good to go anyway. So I just wanted to share that with you because some people don't understand the halfway house, and then when they get there, they get really upset because they're like, well, I thought I was going to have more freedom. I thought this was this. No, this is the way that it is. And that's all there is to it. But anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you. And since this is the last day of this month, the last day I will be um, touching on this subject for a pretty good while. But if you have any questions or comments or have any, like I said, any question that you want to speak to us about, our number will be at the end where you can call us or email us. But also, you can find us on the web at www.hopeforfelons.com. It's all spelled out, it's all one word, hopeforfelons.com. And somebody will help you. And we do have a chat button where you can chat with us live if you need help as well. So I encourage you to explain to your loved ones what I've said, and if they have any questions, they can get in contact with us. I'll also put my cell phone down there as well, so that way they can get in contact with me. Because right now we have the automated attendant and auto attendant, so when they come in, call in, they will actually be prompted, and if they want to speak to one of us, then the call will go through. But I understand that prisons will not be able to use the auto attendant, they have to call straight through. So until next time, this is Doug. I hope everybody had a good March, and now we're going into April, and we'll be starting a brand new subject for April. Have a great day and stay safe.